Hi, my name is Ailimar Lopez, and today I'm presenting about restaurant and bar liability, intoxicated patrons who harm third parties. A dram shop law makes commercial establishments like bars, restaurants, and clubs legally responsible for serving someone who's either a minor or visibly intoxicated, and who then harms a third party. Dram shop originates from the early 18th century, where dram shops were establishments selling alcohol in small units called drams. The concept evolved from English common law, driven by a growing temperance movement that sought to reduce the social harms of alcohol abuse. We will trace how this century old tradition was fundamentally challenged and changed, beginning with early temperance efforts and culminating with the complex state regulated laws we see today. The temperance movement advocated for less alcohol consumption, or total abstinence. Their belief was that alcohol consumption tore families apart because it fueled domestic violence, caused financial ruin through excessive spending and unemployment, and led to moral decay, with advocates linking into family neglect, sexual abuse, and general breakdown of family stability. Many women were active in the movement. In early ages, religious belief played a significant role in shaping the first law on alcohol consumption. Leaders sought to control what they saw as the evils of temperance, often by targeting those in position of power. In 1621, the Virginia Colonial Assembly ruled that ministers should not give themselves over to excess drinking. In 1638, Massachusetts prohibited the drinking of health, a law that was shortly abandoned. In the mid 1700s, England encouraged the production of gin because it was a cheaper and stronger alternative to ale and port. The excessive consumption of gin made its production a significant problem. The first known law pointing toward dram shop liability was the Gin Act of 1736 in England, which regulated excessive gin sales after the negative effects of cheap production. Early regulations targeted fines for drunken behavior, unlawful sales to intoxicated individuals or Indians. By 1779, the US had passed over 80 major laws regulating alcohol. In 1884, first US case known as Harley versus Eddingfield established a crucial duty of care, suggesting a saloon owner could be responsible for serving an intoxicated person who later causes harm. Religious figures like John Wesley were already denouncing the sin of distilling and calling for a complete ban on alcohol. World War I and the Prohibition era. Maine became the first state to ban alcohol in 1851, while several other states followed, such as Oregon and Minnesota. Most repealed their laws when the Civil War began, as the federal government needed alcohol tax revenue to fund the war effort. The United States enters World War I. World War I significantly advanced the American temperance movement and the cause of prohibition. The war provided several powerful arguments for a national alcohol ban: the need to conserve grain for the troops and allies, the belief that alcohol consumption would hinder the war effort by causing waste and inefficiency, and growing hostility towards German Americans, who were heavily associated with the American beer industry. Congress passes the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and submits it to the states for ratification. The amendment provided that, as of 1 year from ratification, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof, into, or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. The amendment also gives the federal and state governments concurrent power to enforce prohibition by appropriate legislation. By 1919, 46 of the 48 states had ratified the 18th Amendment, paving the way for national prohibition. To enforce the amendment, Congress passed the Volstead Act. This act prohibits the manufacture, sell, barter, transport, export, deliver, furnish, or possess any intoxicating liquor, and defines such beverage as anything containing more than 0.5% alcohol. Prohibition officially began on January 17, 1920. Prohibition initially appeared successful, marked by a decline in alcohol related crimes during the early 1920s. Consequently, Dram shop liability became largely irrelevant as the legal consumption of alcohol had ceased. Figures like mob boss Al Capone grew powerful, using their illegal profit to bribe businesses, political leaders, and entire police departments, effectively crippling the enforcement of the 18th Amendment.
Black market. Existing small-time street gangs took advantage, quickly evolving into vast bootlegging criminal enterprises. They employed everyone from warehouse workers to truck drivers to accountants. Gang leaders would bribe politicians, cops, even the prohibition agents themselves, nicknamed prohis, to ensure their businesses ran smoothly. Some relied on rum running, illegally importing liquor from other countries and storing it in warehouses across the U.S. Sometimes they would simply distill liquor in private homes. Other gangsters bought abandoned breweries and operated them in secret. They worked in the shadows, but one part of the business was very public: the violence. Gangs fought for territory in the streets of major U.S. cities. Chicago was especially violent. 729 people were killed by gangs in Cook County alone during Prohibition.
On February 20, 1933, Congress passed both the Blaine Act and proposed the 21st Amendment to repeal Prohibition. Upon ratification, President Roosevelt proclaimed his trust that American people would not bring upon themselves the curse of excessive use of intoxicating liquors to the detriment of health, morals, and social integrity. Section 2 of the 21st Amendment effectively gave the states the ultimate authority to regulate alcohol sales. This is why dram shop laws vary so much today. Modern dram shop law third party liability. Dram shop law directly overrides the old common law defense, functioning as a vital civil remedy for victims. For a plaintiff to be successful in a dram shop lawsuit, the person must be able to prove that the hospitality establishment served alcohol illegally. If the plaintiff is unable to provide evidence of this fact, the case can be dismissed. The injured party in a dram shop case will likely sue both first and second party. In some states, comparative negligence applies in this circumstance, enabling the establishment to reduce its liability by the percentage of liability attributable to the drinking driver. The jury will be asked to allocate the liability between the defendants. Each will pay the percentage of the plaintiff's damage equal to the percentage of liability attributable to them. In a successful dram shop liability claim, victims can recover compensation for damages including medical expenses, lost wage and benefits, property damage, pain and suffering, funeral and burial expenses in case of wrongful death. A few states do not have dram shop acts. Liability for illegal alcohol sales can lead to money verdicts against a bar or restaurant, revocation of the liquor license, and criminal charges. Conclusion. Ultimately, the journey from the common law's absolute exoneration of the seller through the social pressure of temperance and the eventual repeal of prohibition has culminated in one singular modern principle: shared responsibility. Dram shop laws accomplish two things. They provide essential compensation for victims, and more fundamentally, force the entire hospitality industry to prioritize public safety and ethical service over short term profit. The liability of a bar or restaurant is no longer a matter of archaic precedent, but a modern, ethical, and necessary duty of care. A duty owed not just to the patron, but to every person or third party involved.